Hello and welcome to this short presentation on your LinkedIn and CV. My name is Ciarán Hourican. I'm Managing Director of a small training firm called H Training. We've partnered with Cork County Council on a number of initiatives over the years, and we're delighted to be able to contribute to the Work Matters initiative at Cork County Libraries. What we do essentially is we help people acquire the careers that they want. A CV and a LinkedIn profile are increasingly becoming a very important part of this. And let's dive right into the content and I'll show you what we mean. We've been heavily involved in H Training in career development for the best part of 30 years. There's a lot of focus at present on, I suppose, new technologies and the world that's evolving around us, which has only increased in the wake of COVID-19. I'm very passionate about both of these, your CV and your LinkedIn profile. And I think they, when done right and when done in a kind of, I suppose, a targeted and strategic way, this can really, really help you. So as I said, a big part of our focus is career development, but I'm also a workplace mentoring coach and I advise organizations on their kind of strategic development, kind of map out their goals. And I hear a lot what employers are looking for. And I also deal with a lot of applicants who are seeking to gain employment. And it's one of those kind of things that really we're trying to bridge. A CV and a LinkedIn profile, again, when tailored in the right way, can really assist you in doing this. So what we're going to talk about today is, what is the purpose of your CV? It's very important to be clear about this. It's an important document. While the world of work has changed, the CV is very much holding its own. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that as we go forward. However, coming up fast on its heels is the LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn's growth has been an astronomical one. I'm going to show you some figures around that. And what's very interesting too is that its growth has probably even accelerated since we entered into lockdown in March of 2020, which tells you a lot about how relevant it has become. The debate then, the question, and I'm not sure it's an answerable one around which is better. We're going to have a look at this and I'm going to walk you through where to start and what to do. I'm also going to show you my own LinkedIn profile, which is an all-star rating, and give you some tips on what you can do with this. Okay, and there's just a couple of pointers, do's and don'ts that we can kind of assist you with there. This is a general introduction to both of these facilities, resumes, CVs, and LinkedIn. If you wanted to have a look at something more comprehensive, you can find out more information on our services at htraining.net. But let's see what we can support you with here today. So the curriculum vitae for some people is, I suppose, a challenging document. There is a lot of focus I see from people who come to me in improving their CV in perhaps the wrong areas, okay? The dreaded gap on a CV, what do we do with that? And also, how much information do I need to put in? Enthusiastic candidates want to provide CVs that are impactful, that share their passion, okay? That send this across. However, what you need to keep in mind with a CV is your audience. Typically, this is either a busy recruiter, a busy hiring manager, or somebody that needs someone in a role in a hurry, okay? If you're providing them with a big, long document, and I've seen page-and-a-half long profile introductions, right? What that does is it serves to irritate them. This is too much information for this document, okay? The word CV, the word resume, it derives from the French resume, which means to summarize. Okay, this is a document that really has a transactional function. If I can look at your CV and I can see at the top of it a brisk, succinct profile statement that tells me who you are, that makes a statement, right? A factual statement about you professionally. This really helps me, okay? It gives me a flavor as a recruiter of who I'm dealing with here, okay? A lot of the work that recruiters do is they basically screen CVs. So they're going through the document and looking for the things that will exclude you or the things that will include you, okay? Now, generally speaking, this is still a very, very important document and it has withstood the test of time. We've transitioned to a digital world. Everything is on soft copy now, meaning it's either attached to an email, it's sent as part of a file sharing platform, and paper is really kind of, I suppose, in line with sustainability on its way out. But again, the CV can really give a kind of an employer or an organization just that window into who you are, right? It's still very, very important. It hasn't gone away, despite all of the technological changes we've seen. Recruiters regularly look to this as the first kind of staple in the recruitment process. Now, there's a lot to it, okay? And what we don't want to do, our key point in the CV, is not to get bogged down in too much information, okay? What's the message you're trying to communicate, okay? If you want to emphasize this message, you do that in an interview, okay? The purpose of the CV is to acquire you an interview, okay? It's a transactional document. Who have we got? What can they provide us with? And then it's basically the next call to action is to establish a CV. Now, there's a couple of different ways that we can kind of look at them, okay? The profile on your CV is a very important part of this. This is basically a sentence or maybe two sentences at the top of the document, right? That kind of just tells us some information about you. Now, can you describe yourself professionally in a sentence? Okay, that's really, really the challenge here, okay? And what I've done here is I've broken it down into two parts, okay? There's no one way to do this. There'll be a range of different ways that we will. I'm going to show you my own shortly, which probably could do with being updated. I have mine on my LinkedIn, but there's a number of different ways that you can do this, okay? An experienced manager, so we're making a statement, a BIS graduate, a childcare assistant, an English undergraduate, a carpenter. So let's talk about who you are to begin with. My one would be a training consultant, right? That's the first factual statement, right? Or a strategic consultant. There's a range of different, a career specialist. There's a range of different ones we can use. So like I said, you may want to tailor your CV depending on the role you're going for, okay? I have seen some people really do tend to put themselves in boxes with regard to their career, and they say, this is where I've been and I have to stay here. This is something that I would reject completely. And I've worked with a lot of people one-to-one on a kind of a, you know, career strategy whereby we look at the options you have to pivot, okay? And that can be done very deftly, right? It's basically about focusing on something maybe, you know, adjacent to what you've been doing, might be your main area of expertise, but how we can exploit that and relay it to potential employers. So that's part one. We make a statement about who we are and about who we are professionally. And then what we get into with a background in what else have you been doing? Is there something else you've been involved in your career? Have you managed people? You know, anybody with management experience, it tends to stand out, right? Or is there something else that you've been involved in either on a voluntary capacity or other work that you used to be involved in previously in your career? So I've just put in a few examples here with a background in art, cooking, consultancy, customer service or sales, childcare. Now, obviously that's not an exhaustive list, but what we're doing here is we're saying, I'm an experienced, or I'm a BIS graduate with a background in customer service and sales, right? So what this does is it couples those two things together, and we're building the picture here of what it is that you're offering, okay? And then what we want with our last one is we want to basically, you know, offer an intention about what we're trying to accomplish with our CV. So our experienced manager with a background in consultancy seeks to commence a career in, transition in, you know, redeploy themselves into another area, develop a social enterprise. What is it you're looking to do here? Okay, it seeks to pivot, something along of this nature. So ask yourself when you're compiling your CV, what is it I'm looking to acquire from this? Typically with graduates, it's, you know, commence a career. With someone with more experience, it might be seeks to acquire a new challenge, seeks to pursue a different challenge. I have worked with a lot of people who are maybe very, very capable. And what they've done is they've maybe hit a ceiling in the role they're in and they feel under challenged, right? That can be very subtle and it doesn't often appear to people. they may be getting frustrated with work, they're not looking forward to it, and they're wondering why. Often it is that they're under challenged, right? So there's nothing wrong with putting that in your CV, right? Seeks to assume a new challenge, seeks to develop their career that little bit further, okay? This gives me a lot of information about you from the get-go, right? So if it's done correctly, I think my own one is an experienced training consultancy with an appreciation of technology and a background in a number of different areas seeks to. So I want to show you an example. The next kind of, I suppose, point within this is how do you arrange the information that you're providing on your CV? Okay, this is kind of the standard template I would use with a lot of my own clients. Now, an interesting point around this is actually, I have a photograph of myself within there. There can be some difficulties around GDPR if you're including your picture on your CV. Some organizations don't really like it. I mean, again, it's part of your information. Your CV would fall under this too. GDPR is obviously the more muscular data protection, and it puts a kind of impetus on an organization to manage your information in a particular way. But it depends. It varies organization to organization. So now there's no requirement that you put a photograph in as well. So just what I have here, if you look at this, I have my profile statement, and I think this was something I updated not recently. The one thing to keep in mind here too is I will be using my CV for very different purposes for job seeking. Typically, my CV would be used if I'm tendering for work, or if there's potential clients, that want to find out a little bit more of me, right? So it's not necessarily me looking for a job, given that I'm self-employed, okay? But this would be what I would recommend to a lot of my clients. Now, if you look here at the profile that I've put in here, right, probably a little bit on the longer side, okay? But what I'm trying to do is factor in everything in here. An experienced learning and development specialist with over 10 years experience in leadership, management, and coaching development, along with over 13 years in the field of coaching, mentoring, and career development across the public and private sectors, with a great passion for technology and blended learning. So I'm including everything within that there, right, within my areas of focus. Now, the other thing that I've done here is what I've split the screen. So I've put experience in education. I've divided them up. There tends to be more of a focus on your educational achievements if you're going for a role within a university or within an educational setting. Okay. In my experience, I rarely see employers wanting to really interrogate your education. What it sometimes serves is as a screening device. It becomes a box ticker. That's not to devalue it. It's a very, very important thing to acquire. But typically, employers are looking to find out a little bit more about you. And experience, for the most part, where there are exceptions, tends to typically rule the roost in selection. Okay. Now, so rather than just putting experience on top and burying your education down there, what I've done is the split screen approach. Okay, that line in the middle can vary. It can be in a different place, and what you can also do is you could remove the border on the box on the outside, which might make it look that little bit cleaner. Okay, so again, if I'm scanning, if I'm a busy recruiter or hiring manager, I'm looking here at all of this information, and I'm basically saying, okay, that's the profile, and I can jump across, right, from education into experience. Right now, the thing I do with experience is I have key duties and I also have key achievements. Okay. This is just if there's anything to highlight, if there's anything you've done well in your career. And I've also put over education here. Okay. If there's anything that stands out, I won awards for my master's there. I obviously wanted to emphasize that. I have an asterisk there, and I've just kind of put that in bold in the center. Okay. And then as we go down, what we want to keep here is kind of balanced, right? So you can see I've left some of my work here kind of, I've emphasized that. Now I've had a number of different roles. I'm managing director now. I was managing partner when this was compiled, and that's kind of previous work that I've done. There'll be certain things, there's a whole other gamut of things I could put in there from different roles that I had, be it as a courier, be it as, I suppose that's a tutor there, as a scribe, customer service, sales. But if I'm focusing in my own professional area, I'm just going to summarize that. Okay. I'm just going to use all of the examples attendant to that, right? There's really no need sometimes to give an absolute comprehensive list of what you've done. because again, recruiters will probably lose interest going back 4 or 5 years, right? I do see some people, they put everything into it, and what will happen is you'll have a 5 or 6 page CV, a lot of the information in it being irrelevant. Okay, what I've done here as well is just important to keep your tenses right. Okay, and I've also got a kind of a standardization for the qualifications over here: name, institute, results. All right, and then just going down is you might want to include something to keep the balance on one side or the other side. Okay, now attending to this, here down, one of the things I get asked about a lot is references, and while they can be very important, at the same time, some people don't want to provide them unless, you know, they're kind of getting to the next stage. And by not providing the references, this does give you a kind of an insight, right? It gives you an insight into the process, because the employer will contact, the potential employer will contact you to say, okay, can we request those references? And it kind of gives you the information that you've moved on to the next level. Now, another employer, another application, they might ask specifically for those references, so you might include them. Okay, but that's just something simple there around the structure of it. Okay, obviously be consistent with your fonts, make sure that you have enough space, don't make it too busy. There isn't really a CV that you couldn't kind of dig into that a little bit more and critique, right, if you did it in a number of different ways. So this is really what I've kind of put down here. Okay, education experience, we probably want to do the split screen. Depending, if you're a graduate, you might want to emphasize your education that little bit over your experience, but just make sure that you don't bury one or the other down at the bottom of the CV where I have to kind of root around to find it. Okay, and obviously we want our most recent experience first, because this is what's most relevant. Okay, so that's just a quick kind of idea of the CV. What I'm going to move on to next is LinkedIn. And what LinkedIn is basically a social media site for professionals. Okay, I'm tailoring this to people who've never heard of LinkedIn before, and I'm sure some of you are maybe on LinkedIn already and you do know about it. This is effectively the Facebook for professionals. Okay, how are you going to network with people? How are you going to demonstrate who you are, make connections? There's a range of different purposes for it. Okay, one of the key things too is it can be a research tool for job seekers, but it can also be used to recruit people and to select people. There's a job section within it, and I mean it's regularly updated and populated. I've managed a few recruitment initiatives for colleagues, and we've used LinkedIn, and I have found it very successful. So like, if you think of it, LinkedIn is perhaps the largest professional database in the world. Okay, it has a record of quite a lot of people. Now, depending on your feeling around social media, it's not everybody's cup of tea, right? It has received some negative press, to say the least, in recent years. But if you are serious in certain industries about developing your career, I would strongly suggest that you have a strong presence on LinkedIn. Those would be primarily, I suppose, in a corporate field, in technology, perhaps PR, marketing, you know, and if there's anything where you would maybe be prominent, have a kind of a visibility, LinkedIn in that regard is probably non-negotiable right now. Again, I'm very surprised the amount of senior people I see without LinkedIn profiles. I sometimes refer clients, you know, individual clients to some of my corporate partners, and the first thing they'll say is, give me a name and I'll check them out on LinkedIn. Okay, so this is very accessible, right? And it can help you to stand out in that sense. So bit of the history. LinkedIn was launched in 2003. By August 2004, it had 1 million users. Okay, that's not exactly that long ago. 2020, we had 690 million users, and by 2021, we're now at 740. So, you know, what did the lockdown do to stop LinkedIn's progress? Very little. Okay, it also is owned now by Microsoft, which a lot of people probably don't know. It was purchased in 2016 for 26.2 billion, which was the largest acquisition Microsoft ever made. Okay, didn't alter much about it. I mean, it still has its own purpose, right? It's just owned by, you know, a larger parent. So its usage is for professional networking. I would use LinkedIn to perhaps reach out to people who may be interested in training or partnering with me on some things. it's, you know, that little bit simpler than kind of going to an organization's website and trying to find a gatekeeper, or trying to find a decision maker, trying to get beyond the gatekeeper rather. You can kind of find a lot of the decision makers in an organization on LinkedIn, and that makes it very, very useful. If you're eager to stand out and you want to demonstrate your initiative, you can do that by going on LinkedIn. Now, the one caveat I would put to that is don't bombard or annoy people, right? Some people, depending on the various settings they have, would not allow you to kind of reach out to them directly. If you have a premium subscription with LinkedIn, you can do that. But you can, you know, mess around with your resume, your profile, kind of, you know, highlight other things. If you get a new qualification, you can add that to it. If you're upskilling at present, and build a network kind of that's tailored for the direction that you want to go in. Okay. What it also allows you to do is, it's not just people that are on LinkedIn, it's also businesses, right? So you can find a business would have its own page on there, and you can kind of find, you know, their headcount or employee numbers, things like this. If they might have a career section highlighted on that, which will link you obviously to the recruitment section on LinkedIn. It is a great way of making connections. I am a firm believer in collaboration. I think more people working together will accomplish much more than people kind of being individualized. And what I do notice that as our culture, maybe an Irish culture, tends to be challenged a little bit more, there's a lot of kind of American practices being adopted here because we have a lot of foreign direct investment that's kind of American focused. There's this standoffishness that can be present at times, right, in certain walks of industry. And I would notice that some people wouldn't be as receptive to being reached out on LinkedIn, whereas I have had some American associates who treat LinkedIn like it's their email. Okay. It's a really surefire way to reach out to them, to get in touch with them. They don't mind that, and a lot of them will come back to you, which makes your job easier, right? If you're looking to get a role in an organization and you're maybe not sure about what to do it, or they're not advertising anything directly, it's a really good way to kind of reach out. Now, again, remember, you need to measure that, and you need to be careful how you word it. I get a lot of stuff, and I'll kind of maybe show you some of the messages I have. I do get a lot of reach out from people trying to kind of sell me things on LinkedIn. And for the most part, I don't really respond to those. Okay. So, you know, manage your communications in that sense. Okay. What you'll need for LinkedIn is you will need an email address. Okay. Obviously, to verify that you're not a robot signing up to LinkedIn on the internet. You will need a photograph, and this photograph would need to be suited to, you know, a professional environment. I see people kind of put pictures up that maybe would be more suited to Facebook, with them kind of messing with their kids or playing or laughing or socializing. It's probably not the best kind of, I suppose, idea for LinkedIn. Okay. And I have worked with clients around that, around getting that picture kind of right. We want something professional. Okay. We want you, you know, the people who come to your profile on LinkedIn to take you seriously, effectively. Again, a title within that, it can be a job title. I think mine is managing director on my own LinkedIn presence, which I'll show you there. Some people do put up open to opportunities and currently seeking work. I mean, that's a very direct statement, and it does highlight that. There's for and against this. I think there's a general kind of consensus that it can be harder to find work if you're kind of unemployed. And sometimes what I notice people do is they just leave their last role active on LinkedIn while they're pursuing kind of other work. And, you know, it just allows people to kind of reach out. And then profile description would be very similar to what we have in your CV. Okay. It's a factual statement about you as a professional. And again, similar to our CV, we want our work history, and we could probably add to that too by including our education. So let me just show you quickly here my own LinkedIn, because I think it's worth our while just having a look at what a profile actually looks like. So my LinkedIn has undergone, I suppose, a number of changes. It's not an area I spend a lot of time on. Okay. What I would mostly use it would be for networking, right? Now, again, I would go on there and have a look around to kind of see what's going on and see what people are doing. One caveat I would make about LinkedIn is remember that a lot of people use it as a marketing tool, right? And a branding tool. A colleague recently said to me, if you believed everything you see on LinkedIn, you would imagine that all of your competitors are multimillionaires, right? Because there is a lot of emphasis put on how successful people are being. There's a, you know, and in places, some of it can be perhaps a little disingenuous, but I know some people who go onto LinkedIn and they see what other people are doing and they maybe get a bit frustrated. They feel they're not progressing as much as they would like to. Just maybe be careful of that. Okay, so here we have my own profile. It's just very kind of matter of fact. It has a lot of information about me, right? There's various settings that you can do, but if you look over here, right, so this is the home setting here, and what I'll see here is in my news feed, similarly to Facebook, you'll see what kind of people are doing, right? There's some information here, so you'll see other people posting things. Some people are posting jobs, posting about initiatives that have happened for them. That's just kind of loading a little bit slowly there. And again, you see organizations like PayPal active on here. You know, you can follow these pages and find out if there's groups that you're interested in. I don't want to linger over any individual for too long, okay? But you can see here that 38 people have viewed my profile. Now, I'm not sure within what time frame that is, and 297 people have viewed my post. So a post can take, it can be a photo, a video, or you can actually write an article. So you can produce your own content on LinkedIn, okay? You get your notifications here like you do, and here's where you're going to kind of build networks. It's in this kind of people section up here, and you'll find a lot of people kind of on this. So it says over here, I have 1,238 connections. I'm not really sure how much that happened, but what I would have found early on is I would have focused very much in one particular area, and perhaps was a little bit top heavy with some of the people that I had reached out to. Okay. So, and then as your career develops and as you gain different interests, these things become less relevant. Okay. So you can see the messaging tab here. I'm just not going to click on that because you can kind of see some of the messages that people have been sending me, but that's kind of where you would reach out to people. I think if it's kind of almost like a friend request, but if you're making a connection, you can send maybe just a short couple of sentences to people about why you're connecting, right? Just to give them some more information. So this is my dashboard here. It tells me all about my LinkedIn, and I have an all-star rating, okay? Meaning that it's my page is well managed and it looks good and I'm kind of active on it. So here was an old profile I had, a versatile learning and development professional coach with a particular interest in supporting others to develop through challenges and empowering themselves through leadership psychology. Okay. My focus would be fairly heavily around tech, and that didn't encompass that. So I wanted to update it, which I've done recently in the other CV one that I showed you. Okay. So again, as you go down here, you just see other information. I'm linking to my website, certain articles that I've written, and there's just some of the activity I've had. And then if you get onto this here, what we have is my history. Now, as you've noticed, you go down, you have this over here. So that allows me to click in and edit any one of these if I wish to. Okay. Now, keep in mind with that, if you're doing that too often, your connections will get an update about you doing that. Okay. And then if you just go down here, there's everything, and I've included my education too, right? And what's also quite useful on this is your skills can get endorsed. So if you have a network already and you want to reach out to people, you can ask them specifically, can you endorse me for coaching? Now, again, I've probably done this intermittently, right? I wouldn't be overly focused on doing this. I see some people with up in the hundreds with recommendations. I'm not sure how much that's kind of, reviewed by people. Really, they'll probably want to get you in a room, but it just adds to what you have. And then I have kind of recommendations that people have given me here. Okay. Now, a lot of those were solicited. I did go to people and say, look, can you write a kind of a testimonial for me there? Because I want to kind of update my LinkedIn. Okay. So don't be afraid to do that, right? It's kind of a reference. And then there's some of my kind of interests and stuff like that down at the end. Okay. So that's really what the LinkedIn page looks like. Be patient with yourself if you're new to it, right? Don't overwhelm yourself early on, right? Just have a look at how you could get set up, get the basics up. You're not probably going to do it all at once, but that's fine. You can build and add on to it as you go. Okay. So here, some of the things I've mentioned already. Don't use images that are unprofessional or too casual. Don't change your role title too much. There tends to be a kind of people don't really like it when people jump between roles maybe too regularly. I do know a lot of recruiters, they look for longevity in people's careers. Now, again, if you're someone that's done that, there's a solution to that too. I'm not trying to kind of demotivate you, but They are looking for kind of, you know, the role where you've put down a couple of years, maybe, or a year, just to see if they could kind of zero in and understand what you're doing there. Okay. Again, don't contact people too much, you know, don't annoy people, because what that does then is they'll tend to dismiss you and perhaps not take you seriously. There is an art to reaching out. Any of you with backgrounds in sales will understand that. I emailed a guy this morning who had emailed me, I think, 6 times in 2 weeks trying to sell me something, and I told him I didn't appreciate it, right? So don't be one of those people. Again, some of the people on LinkedIn may not be checking in with it all the time, and they might come in and have 3 messages for you, and that immediately is a red flag when I see things like that. Okay. Be consistent, right? What is it you're trying to communicate? Here's who I am. Here's what I offer, right? Do that well and do it for a long period of time. And eventually this is how your reputation develops. Be focused and decisive. What is it I'm trying to accomplish here? Who are the people? What's the industry? Is it HR people? Is it recruitment people? Is it managing directors? Is it anyone at a C level? You will find some very dynamic people who are maybe CFOs or CEOs that can be incredibly busy, but like a lot of people at a C level, they can still manage to get things done, and they will come back to you. There was a very interesting article in The Currency recently by, I think it was Rena Maycock, talking about, you know, being nice to people who reach out to you on LinkedIn, right, and supporting them. The one thing I would really do is I do try to encourage junior people who are eager and are coming into the workforce and getting set up. I think that's kind of a collective responsibility we all have. Okay, and be active. You know, post on it, like things, see what other people are doing, see what's going on, see what's out there. That will really help you. Okay, so that's a whirlwind tour of the curriculum vitae and LinkedIn. If I can be of any further assistance, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. We have a team of career coaches, and, you know, by all means, you know, send me a connection on LinkedIn. Maybe put a note in that you came through the Work Matters program, and I wish you all the very best in your career endeavors. I would really encourage you not to believe anyone or anything that tells you you can't do it. Okay, it's all possible once you get the right support and you're consistent and focused with it. So thanks very much to Cork County Council and the Cork Libraries again for asking us to do this. And we look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you.